Josie had stopped believing in coincidences a long time ago. Not after everything that had happened. Not after she was gone. It had been exactly 1 year, 3 months and 11 days since Maria's funeral. Not that he counted, or at least that's what he told himself. But his mind still did the math in silence, like a cruel reminder hidden behind every ordinary day. Some mornings the smell of coffee made him think she was still in the kitchen. Some nights the sound of the wind outside the window sounded just like her whisper. But grief was strange that way. It didn't always scream. Sometimes it just waited, quietly, in the corners of your life, until it found the perfect moment to remind you it was still there. That day started like any other. Josie arrived at the auto shop just before sunrise, the sky painted in a dull gray that matched his mood. The air smelled of rubber and metal, a mixture he'd grown used to, but never liked. He switched on the lights, each bulb flickering awake like a reluctant ghost. The silence before the first customer was the part he both loved and hated most. It was peaceful, but too quiet. He moved through the shop, checking the work orders for the day, wiping his hands on a rag already stained from yesterday. He didn't talk much anymore. The guys at the shop respected that. They knew about Maria. They'd stopped asking if he was doing better. Because grief really doesn't go away. It just learns how to hide under your routine. He went through the motions. Coffee, repairs, small talk with customers. By late afternoon, he was just waiting for closing time, counting the minutes until he could go home and sit in the silence again. But that was when something strange happened. It started with a phone ringing. At first, he didn't pay attention. It wasn't his. It was coming from a shelf in the office where his younger brother Louis sometimes left his things when he helped out after school. The sound was faint but insistent, vibrating against the metal shelf. Then he froze. The name on the screen made his stomach twist. Maria. For a moment, his mind couldn't process it. He just stared at the name, at the tiny photo beside it. Maria smiling under a summer sky, her hair brushing against her cheek. The call kept ringing. Once, twice, a third time. He reached out, slowly, like someone approaching something fragile and dangerous at once. His fingers hovered over the phone, trembling. It had to be a mistake. Someone else with the same name. Or maybe Louis had saved another contact as a joke. That had to be it. But then he remembered. Louis never even knew Maria's number. The phone rang again, and this time curiosity won over fear. He answered. Nothing. Just the faint hiss of static. "Hello?" he said. His voice cracked. "Who is this?" No reply. Only the sound of wind, soft, distant, like a whisper through the trees. He felt a chill crawl up his neck. Then, beneath the static, something else. A voice. Quiet. Familiar. A sound he hadn't heard in over a year. Josie. He nearly dropped the phone. It was her voice. Every muscle in his body tensed up. He couldn't breathe. His heart hammered so loudly it drowned out the silence. "Maria?" he whispered. "Are you there?" Nothing. The line crackled, then cut out completely. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the dark screen. The workshop around him felt suddenly smaller, colder. He tried calling back. No answer. He checked the call log, but the number wasn't there. The last incoming call was from a parts supplier. Nothing else. He rubbed his eyes, trying to shake the image from his mind. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was finally losing it. But when he looked up, he noticed something that made his breath catch again. The phone screen was still faintly lit, not with a missed call, but with a message notification. It read, "Don't be afraid. I need your help." and below it, a small detail that made the blood drain from his face. The message was marked as sent from Josie's own number. He stared at it, his pulse pounding in his ears. How could that be possible? Outside, thunder rolled over the horizon, slow and heavy. The first raindrops hit the workshop windows, blurring the world beyond. He stood frozen, phone still in his hand, unable to make sense of what he was seeing. Then, just as he turned to leave, something else happened. The overhead lights flickered, once, twice, before one of them went out completely. The hum of the machines dimmed to silence, and from somewhere deep inside the darkened shop, a ringtone started again. The same one. Soft, echoing, familiar. Josie's hands went cold, because this time it wasn't coming from Lewis's phone. It was from the back of the workshop, from the drawer where he had kept Maria's old phone since the day she died. He hadn't touched it in over a year. The battery had been dead since the funeral. But now, it was ringing. And on the screen, just before he reached it, he saw a message flash once, then disappear. You shouldn't have answered. Josie didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table, the workshop keys still in his hand, staring at the phone he had brought home, the one that shouldn't have been able to ring. Maria's phone. It lay on the table like a ghost. The screen was dark now, the battery icon dead again. He had tried turning it on half a dozen times, but it remained lifeless, as if whatever spark that had brought it back had vanished with the message. Outside, rain tapped softly against the window. The house smelled faintly of old coffee and the lavender candle Maria used to love. He hadn't lit it in months, but somehow the scent was there again. Subtle, sweet, unsettling. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back in the chair. The house creaked around him. Every sound felt heavier at night. The refrigerator's hum, the ticking of the wall clock, even his own breathing, all of that too loud, too slow. He picked up the phone again. Don't be afraid. I need your help. The words wouldn't leave his head. Help with what? And why would the message appear as if it came from his own number? He opened the drawer beside him, pulling out the old charger. He had never thrown it away. Part of him wanted to, but another part couldn't. The cable fit perfectly. He plugged it in, and for a moment nothing happened. Then a faint buzz. The screen flickered once, twice, before lighting up with the faded wallpaper he remembered. A photo of the two of them at the pier, her hair caught in the wind, her smile half hidden by sunlight. He felt something twist inside him. The phone displayed a low battery symbol, then jumped to the lock screen. He hadn't seen that background in over a year. He entered the passcode from memory. It worked. He waited, expecting to see empty messages and old photos, just the digital remains of a life gone too soon. But the first thing that appeared made him sit up straight. A new folder on the home screen. It was titled, simply, For Josie. His hands trembled as he tapped it open. Inside, there was one note. No date, no time, just the words, If you found this, something's wrong. Don't ignore it. Look for the blue envelope. You'll know where. He read the lines again, as if repetition might make them make sense, but none of it did. The blue envelope. He had no idea what that meant. He scrolled through her old messages, but most of them were still the same. Reminders, grocery lists, photos of sunsets. Except one. A single message appeared under his own name, dated the night before her accident. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Just trust me. He stared at that for a long time.
Tomorrow never came. The phone buzzed again suddenly. A new notification flashed on the screen. One new photo added to gallery. He hadn't added anything. The timestamp read, "Now." He opened the gallery. The newest image loaded slowly, the pixels forming grain by grain, until he realized what it was. The photo showed his workshop, taken from the outside, through the rain-streaked glass. And in the corner of the image, through the reflection, was a figure that looked almost exactly like Maria. His breath caught in his throat. He looked toward the window, nothing but darkness beyond. He turned back to the photo. The figure was there again, half-turned, her face blurred, her outline faintly glowing under the workshop light.
His pulse quickened. "No," he whispered. He closed the photo, hands shaking, and noticed something else. The time on the phone had changed. It now read 2:47 a.m., but the clock on the wall said 1:02. The phone buzzed once more. A new text appeared on the screen. "Don't go to the workshop tomorrow." He felt the air leave his lungs. The room suddenly felt colder. He pressed the power button to turn it off, but the screen stayed on. He tried again. Nothing. Then the message changed before his eyes, as if someone were typing from somewhere unseen. "If you do, you'll see me again." The words blurred, the phone flickered, and then the screen went black completely. Jose sat there, the echo of that last line looping through his mind. He could almost hear her voice saying it, the same gentle tone she used when she was trying to protect him from something. But protect him from what? The rain had stopped outside, leaving a stillness that felt unnatural. He rose slowly, walked to the living room, and sat down on the couch. Across the room, on the shelf by the door, was a small wooden box, Maria's box. He hadn't opened it since the funeral. His fingers hesitated over the lid before he finally lifted it. Inside, folded neatly among photographs and letters, was an envelope. Blue. He froze. He didn't remember ever seeing it before. The paper was worn, the edges soft from time. On the front, in Maria's handwriting, were just two words: "For later." He felt a tightness in his chest, the same words she had said the day before the accident, when he'd asked why she was taking a different route home. "I'll tell you later," she had said, smiling. He turned the envelope over. It was sealed, the flap pressed firmly shut. His hands trembled as he peeled it open. He closed the photo, hands shaking, and noticed something else. The time on the phone had changed. It now read 2:47 a.m., but the clock on the wall said 1:02. The phone buzzed once more. A new text appeared on the screen. "Don't go to the workshop tomorrow." He felt the air leave his lungs. The room suddenly felt colder. He pressed the power button to turn it off, but the screen stayed on. He tried again. Nothing. Then the message changed before his eyes, as if someone were typing from somewhere unseen. "If you do, you'll see me again." The words blurred, the phone flickered, and then the screen went black completely. Jose sat there, the echo of that last line looping through his mind. He could almost hear her voice saying it, the same gentle tone she used when she was trying to protect him from something. But protect him from what? The rain had stopped outside, leaving a stillness that felt unnatural. He rose slowly, walked to the living room, and sat down on the couch. Across the room, on the shelf by the door, was a small wooden box. Maria's box. He hadn't opened it since the funeral. His fingers hesitated over the lid,
before he finally lifted it. Inside, folded neatly among photographs and letters, was an envelope. Blue. He froze. He didn't remember ever seeing it before. The paper was worn, the edges soft from time. On the front, in Ria's handwriting, were just 2 words. 4 later. He felt the tightness in his chest. The same words she had said the day before the accident when he'd asked why she was taking a different route home. "I'll tell you later," she'd said, smiling. He turned the envelope over. It was sealed, the flap pressed firmly shut. His hands trembled as he peeled it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded in half. He unfolded it carefully. The note read, "Jose, if you're reading this, it means the time came sooner than I thought. Don't look for me. Not yet. Go to the place where we first met. Everything starts there." His eyes lingered on the handwriting, delicate, looping, unmistakably hers. He could almost feel her presence in the words. He sat back, overwhelmed by a mix of fear, confusion, and an ache he couldn't name. The place where they first met. He remembered that day vividly. The old pier outside town, the sound of waves crashing beneath weathered boards, the smell of salt and rain. They'd met there during a storm, 2 strangers taking shelter under the same awning. He hadn't been back since she died. The thought of going there filled him with dread. And something else. Hope. He folded the note and placed it back in the envelope. Then he looked at the clock again. 1:23 a.m. He should sleep. He knew he should. But his mind was already elsewhere. At the pier, with the wind, with the memory of her smile. He set the phone on the table. Its screen stayed dark, no sign of life. Yet as he turned to head upstairs, a faint vibration made him stop. The phone had lit up again. A single new message appeared. No number, no contact name, just one line. "Hurry, Jose. The tide is coming in." The light flickered once and vanished, leaving him alone in the silence. He stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, staring at the blank screen, knowing exactly where he'd be going when morning came. Jose woke before sunrise, though he hadn't slept more than a few restless hours. The envelope still lay on the kitchen table, Maria's delicate handwriting staring at him like a beacon. The words, "Go to the place where we first met," repeated in his mind, echoing with a clarity that left no room for hesitation. He dressed slowly, almost ritualistically, pulling on his worn jacket and slipping into his old boots. Outside, the world was still
muted in the pale morning light. Dew clung to the grass, shimmering faintly like tiny mirrors reflecting an uncertain sky. The streets were quiet, almost eerily so, and the chill clung to his fingers as he held the envelope in his hand. The drive to the pier was long enough to force him into silence. Jose didn't speak aloud. He didn't want to. He needed the memory of Maria, unbroken by the chatter of the outside world. His mind drifted back to the day they had met, the storm, the shared laughter, the way the wind had tangled her hair and forced him to reach forward to brush it aside. That moment had felt like destiny. Now it felt like a compass pointing him towards something he wasn't ready to understand. The pier came into view just as the first sunlight touched the horizon. The wooden boards were slick with morning dew, creaking softly under his feet as he stepped onto them. The smell of salt water mixed with wet wood filled his lungs. Everything was exactly as he remembered, and yet subtly changed. Time had moved, but it felt as if the pier had paused, waiting for him. He stopped halfway across and pulled out Maria's note once more. He read the words silently. Everything starts there. A breeze brushed against his face, carrying a faint whisper, one he could almost mistake for her voice. It made his chest tighten and his heart ache, a bittersweet pain he hadn't thought possible after a year of grief. José wandered to the edge of the pier where the waves crashed gently against the supports below. He squinted at the horizon, half expecting to see something, someone waiting for him. But there was nothing, only the rhythm of the tide, the soft cries of gulls and the faint rustle of wind across the water. Then he noticed it. A small blue envelope tucked between two wooden boards at the very end of the pier. The color was familiar, almost like it had been waiting for him all this time. He bent down and picked it up carefully, almost afraid to touch it. The paper felt oddly warm in his hands, as though it carried some residual energy. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. He unfolded it slowly. It was a picture of the workshop, the one he had left behind, taken at night. The lights were on, but what drew his attention was not the building itself, but a figure standing in the doorway. At first it looked like Maria, but her features were blurred, indistinct. Only her posture and the tilt of her head gave away her identity. Beneath the photo was another note, written in her handwriting. "Don't go back inside. Look closer, José. Everything is connected." José's pulse quickened. He stared at the photograph, then looked out over the water. The waves lapped gently against the pier, a rhythm as steady as his own breathing. He could almost hear Maria's voice in the wind, whispering, guiding him. Something about the note urged him forward, deeper into the mystery. He felt a pull he didn't understand, a need to follow the path she had left. It knew that whatever was waiting, it wasn't danger in the traditional sense. It was something else entirely, something beyond his understanding. He glanced down at the blue envelope again, realizing there was another fold tucked inside. Carefully, he opened it and found a small key, old, tarnished, yet clearly significant. No label, no indication of what it opened, only a faint engraving, H. José's mind raced. H? What could it mean? His heart thumped with a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. He looked out toward the horizon. The sun had risen slightly, turning the water a pale gold. The morning air smelled of salt and possibilities. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine that Maria had somehow orchestrated this entire sequence, a final puzzle for him to solve, a way to bring him back to life even after she had gone. He tucked the key safely into his jacket pocket and sat down on the edge of the pier. The water beneath him moved quietly, undisturbed by his presence. José's mind wandered back to the last time he had seen Maria alive, the way she had smiled at him, how her laughter had filled every empty corner of his heart. And now, a year later, he was here, holding a key that could unlock more than just a door. A sudden thought made him shiver. What if this wasn't just about memory? What if Maria had left something behind, something that she had never told him, something that explained why she had gone so suddenly, so inexplicably? He looked down at the key again, feeling its weight in his hand. It was small, but it felt important, monumental even. And yet he had no idea where to begin. He stood, the wind tugging at his jacket, and scanned the pier once more. That's when he noticed a faint shimmer near the far end where the boards met the water. Something glinting, half buried in the sand and tide. Curiosity overcame caution.
He walked carefully toward it, the boards creaking beneath his weight. As he reached the edge, he bent down and picked up a small metal box, corroded at the edges, but unmistakably locked. José's heart raced. The key in his pocket vibrated, almost as if it recognized its counterpart. He held the box in both hands, feeling the weight of it, feeling as if the next step would reveal everything or nothing. He took a deep breath, preparing to unlock it. His fingers trembled slightly as he inserted the key. The lock clicked open. Inside the box, carefully wrapped in a thin velvet cloth, was an object that made his breath catch. A locket. Small, delicate, unmistakably Maria's. But it wasn't the one he remembered. This one had a tiny photograph inside, not of them, but of someone else. He froze, staring at the image. A chill ran down his spine as the wind picked up, scattering droplets of water across the pier. Then, beneath the photograph, etched in tiny letters, "Find me before the tide comes in." The words echoed in his mind. He looked at the water, watching the tide creeping closer to the pier, lapping against the supports with a silent rhythm.
And somewhere in the distance, he thought he saw a figure, faint, fleeting, standing at the edge of the fog rising from the water. José's pulse quickened. He didn't know if it was real or a trick of the light, but one thing was certain. Whatever was waiting for him at the end of this path, it wasn't done with him yet. And the tide was coming in. José stood at the edge of the pier, the locket clutched tightly in his hand. His heart pounded in rhythm with the soft crashing of waves below, each beat echoing in his chest like a drum announcing the start of something he couldn't yet name. The fog hung low over the water, curling and twisting like smoke, hiding more than it revealed. And there, just at the far end, shrouded in mist, he thought he saw it again. A figure, faint and unmoving. His breath caught. His rational mind screamed that it was nothing, that fog played tricks on tired eyes, yet every fiber of his being told him otherwise. Maria's voice, soft and haunting, seemed to whisper just at the edge of hearing, "José, come." The tide lapped closer, splashing against the wooden supports of the pier. José's boots creaked with each step he moved forward. The fog seemed to thicken with every inch he advanced, wrapping around him like a living thing, muffling the sound of the world beyond the water. The figure was clearer now, but still impossible to identify. A silhouette, human in shape but blurred around the edges, almost glowing faintly in the pale morning light. His fingers tightened around the locket, as though the weight of it could give him courage or perhaps protect him. As he drew closer, the figure remained motionless, yet there was a sense of anticipation in the air, a tension so tangible that José could feel it pressing against his chest. The locket seemed to pulse in his hand, warm and alive, almost as if Maria herself had left a part of her there. Then the fog shifted, a gust of wind sweeping over the pier, and a woman's voice rang out, faint but unmistakable. "José!" He froze, the word piercing through the fog like a blade. He knew that voice, knew it better than he knew his own heartbeat. But when the figure came into focus, he realized it wasn't quite her, not Maria. It was someone else, someone he didn't recognize, yet there was an eerie familiarity in the way she stood, the tilt of her head, the calm steadiness of her gaze. Her eyes locked onto his, and the world seemed to narrow, leaving only the two of them and the mist curling around the pier. José swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. Who are you?" The woman's lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. "I've been waiting for you." He took another step forward, the wooden boards of the pier creaking beneath him. "Waiting? For me?" "Yes," she said, her voice soft, but carrying an authority that made Jose's skin prickle. "Maria knew you'd come. She left pieces for you to find, the key, the locket, all of it. But this is where the next part begins. You're ready now." Jose's mind spun. Ready? For what? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she raised her hand, pointing toward the water. The tide was closer now, curling around the edges of the pier, threatening to reach the boards he stood on. "The tide," she said softly, "brings endings and beginnings. You have a choice, Jose. Follow the path Maria left, or turn back and never know why she left so soon." His eyes flicked to the locket. He felt the warmth in his hand, a silent pull toward the unknown. Every instinct told him to run, to leave the pier and return to the safety of the life he had left. But another part, a part he hadn't felt in a long time, told him to trust, to move forward. Jose took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll follow." The woman's expression softened. "Good. Then the first step is to trust what you see, not what you think you know." She held out her hand, and Jose noticed a small, worn envelope resting in her palm. It was the same shade of blue as the others, but older, more fragile. "This," she said, "is the next message. Maria left it for you, but she couldn't come herself. You must take it to the place she wanted you to see. There, you'll understand." Jose hesitated. "And if I fail?" The woman's eyes held him in place. "You won't. But hesitation can be dangerous. She trusted you. Now, it's your turn to trust her." Jose reached out and took the envelope, and the moment his fingers closed around it, the locket pulsed once more, a subtle warmth spreading through his hand. The fog swirled violently for a heartbeat, as if to acknowledge his decision, then settled again, leaving the pier silent, except for the lapping tide. The figure stepped back into the mist, disappearing almost entirely, leaving only the faint outline of her presence. Jose stood alone, clutching the envelope and the locket, feeling both the weight of responsibility and a strange sense of clarity. Maria had left him breadcrumbs, and he knew now that this was far bigger than he had imagined. He looked out over the water. The tide was higher now, rushing closer to the pier with a quiet inevitability. The envelope and locket in his hands felt like keys to something. Not just doors, but truths that had been hidden from him, truths Maria wanted him to find. Jose turned toward the path leading from the pier. The journey ahead was uncertain, the fog thick and concealing the world beyond. But one thing was clear. Maria's presence was guiding him. Her love, her memory, her mystery, it was all here, waiting to be uncovered. He stepped forward toward the unknown, knowing that each step brought him closer to answers he had never expected, to revelations that would change everything he thought he knew about her, about the past, and about himself. And as he walked, he could feel it, the tide coming in, carrying with it secrets that had been waiting a long time to be revealed.
Jose walked slowly along the narrow, fog-draped path leading away from the pier, the envelope and locket pressed against his chest. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of the mystery Maria had left for him was physically pressing down. The fog clung to the trees, twisting their shapes into strange, unfamiliar forms. The world beyond seemed muted, colors drained to gray, sounds muffled except for the crunch of gravel beneath his boots. The envelope was worn and delicate, its edges frayed as though it had traveled through countless hands or weathered years of waiting.
Jose tore it open carefully, revealing a folded note and a small map, hand-drawn in Maria's unmistakable script. Go to the place where shadows linger. Look for the door that no one sees. There you will find what I could not leave behind. The words sent a shiver down his spine. He had no idea what shadows linger meant, yet some instinct told him he already knew. Memories of the old abandoned greenhouse on the outskirts of the city surfaced, a place Maria had once loved for its quiet solitude, the way the sunlight pooled in through broken glass, the smell of damp earth and roses lingering even in winter. He knew it had to be there. Jose set off in the direction indicated on the map, the locket pressing warmth against his palm with every step. The city slowly gave way to a quiet, overgrown path. Trees arched overhead, their branches forming a natural tunnel. Light filtered through in hazy beams, illuminating patches of moss and fallen leaves. The envelope's map was crude but unmistakable, a single line, a curve of a path, a dot marking the hidden location. As he approached the greenhouse, his heart began to race. The building was cloaked in ivy and time, glass panes fractured and fogged. It looked abandoned, forgotten, yet something about it felt alive, as if it had been waiting for him all along. Jose stepped closer, his boots crunching against broken concrete. The door was old, paint peeling, hinges rusted. He tried the handle, locked. He pulled the locket from his pocket. Its warmth seemed to pulse stronger now, as if it were urging him to look closer. Then, just as he bent down to examine the doorway, he noticed it. A small, almost imperceptible latch hidden beneath a crack in the wood. His fingers brushed it, and the door swung open silently, revealing darkness within. Jose hesitated at the threshold. The interior smelled of earth and decay, yet beneath it lingered a familiar scent, Maria. It was faint, fleeting, but unmistakable. He stepped inside cautiously, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through shattered glass. Dust motes danced in the air, illuminated by the morning sun. The greenhouse was larger than he remembered, rows of empty plant beds stretching out like skeletons of a once lively garden. In the far corner, partially hidden by shadows, he saw it. A small wooden chest, carved with intricate patterns and almost entirely obscured by the debris of years. It seemed to pulse with the same subtle warmth as the locket. Jose approached it slowly, every step echoing against the glass walls. He knelt beside the chest and brushed away layers of dust. A faint hum seemed to emanate from it, not mechanical, not musical, but something alive, resonating with memory and emotion. He opened it carefully, holding his breath. Inside were items that made his chest tighten. Letters, photographs, a delicate scarf, and a journal, all belonging to Maria. But what caught his eye most was a small, sealed envelope, similar to the blue ones he had found before, except this one had no writing on it, no hints, nothing, but a single, faint heart drawn in the center. Jose's hands trembled as he picked it up. He felt a surge of hope and fear all at once. The envelope was heavy with meaning, and he instinctively knew that opening it would reveal something pivotal, something that would either answer all his questions or leave him with even more. He paused, taking a deep breath. The journal beside it seemed to call to him as well, a silent promise that Maria's thoughts, her feelings, her memories, all of them were waiting to be uncovered. But he resisted the urge to dive in immediately. First, the envelope. It demanded attention, as if it contained the key to the rest of the story. Jose slit the envelope open carefully. Inside, he found a single photograph. Not of Maria, not of himself, but of a house. A small, quaint building, surrounded by trees, almost hidden from view. There was something familiar about it,
yet he had never seen it before. Beneath the photograph was a note, written in Maria's flowing handwriting. "This is the place where everything begins again. Go and do not fear. You are ready." Jose's pulse quickened. The photograph, the note, the locket, everything was pointing towards this new location, a place he had never been, yet somehow felt intimately connected to Maria's life, to her memory, to the love he had lost, and now perhaps was about to rediscover. He stood, dusting off his knees, and stepped back into the muted light filtering through the greenhouse glass. The world outside was still gray, still quiet, yet there was movement in the air, a sense of anticipation, of inevitability. The tide of mystery that had drawn him here was far from over. Jose took a final glance at the chest, at the items Maria had left behind, and tucked the photograph and the envelope carefully into his jacket. The locket rested warm against his chest, a heartbeat that reminded him she was still guiding him, even from wherever she was. As he stepped out of the greenhouse, the fog thickened again, curling around the building like a protective shroud. He turned towards the path indicated in the photograph, towards the house that held answers, and a feeling both terrifying and exhilarating washed over him. He was on the edge of revelation. And just as he set his first step on the path, he heard it. A faint, familiar whisper carried by the wind through the trees. "Jose, hurry, don't let it fade away." He froze. The words were not just memory, they were real, urgent, insistent. His heart pounded. Maria was speaking to him again, guiding him towards something that could no longer wait. He picked up his pace, the envelope and locket pressing against his chest, and the fog swirling around him as though urging him forward. Every step brought him closer to the hidden place, closer to the truth Maria had left for him, and closer to an understanding that would change everything he thought he knew about loss, love, and the spaces between life and memory. And somewhere ahead, in the shadows and the mist, he could feel the presence of someone, or something, waiting for him. The path stretched before Jose like a ribbon of shadow through the dense fog. The photograph from Maria's chest pulsed in his mind, showing the small, hidden house, its walls almost swallowed by trees. Every step he took felt like crossing a threshold, not just into space, but into a time suspended between memory and reality.
Branches scraped softly against each other, whispering in the wind. The forest seemed alive, aware of him, of the purpose that had brought him here. The locket throbbed warmly against his chest, syncing with his racing heartbeat. Each pulse reminded him that Maria's presence, though unseen, guided his steps. Then, just ahead, a clearing emerged. The fog lifted slightly, revealing the house from the photograph. It was small, modest, almost unremarkable, but it radiated a quiet familiarity, as though it had existed in Jose's mind before he had ever seen it. Its wooden exterior was weathered, paint peeling, yet the windows glimmered faintly, reflecting the muted light of the morning sun. Jose approached cautiously, the envelope and locket pressed against his chest. He noticed the front door, slightly ajar, as if expecting him. A rush of emotion surged, hope, fear, anticipation, all mingling in a whirlwind inside him. He stepped forward, and the door creaked softly as he pushed it open. Inside, the house was empty, yet it was alive with echoes. The scent of old wood and faint perfume lingered, a trace of Maria's presence. Dust danced in the sunlight, filtering through the windows, forming hazy patterns on the floor. Every step Jose took made a soft, hollow sound.
the silence almost unbearable in its weight. In the living room, a small table held a single object, a music box, polished and gleaming despite the age of the house. He approached and opened it carefully. A familiar melody began to play, the song Maria had once hummed for him, the one that had always brought comfort during sleepless nights. A sudden warmth enveloped him, and he felt her presence more vividly than ever before. The locket pulsed, syncing with the music, and Jose realized that this house, this place, was not just a location. It was a vessel of memory, of love, of connection that had transcended death itself. Then he noticed something in the corner of the room, a faint outline, almost blending with the shadows. His breath caught as he stepped closer. The outline took form. A woman, ethereal, almost shimmering. Maria. Not as he remembered her in life, not just in photographs or memories, but here, present, in a way that made the impossible feel undeniable. Jose. Her voice was soft, yet every word resonated in his chest, in his bones, in the very air around him. You found me. Tears welled in his eyes as he reached out, trembling. Maria, how... You're here. She smiled, a mixture of sadness and joy, a reflection of every moment they had shared. I've never really left. This place, it's where memories linger, where love endures. I couldn't stay in the world of the living, but I could leave breadcrumbs for you. You followed them, and now you're here. Jose sank to his knees, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions, grief, relief, love, and a strange sense of closure. The locket in his hand glowed softly, as if confirming her presence. He held it close to his heart, feeling her warmth. You've been so brave, Maria said, her form drawing closer, yet still just beyond reach. You've carried our love, our memories, through the fog of loss. And now you can understand. He listened intently as she guided him, telling him things he had never known, secrets she had kept, fears she had endured alone, and the depth of her love for him and the children. Every word wrapped around him, healing wounds he hadn't even realized were still bleeding. Hours seemed to pass in moments. The house seemed suspended in time, a safe haven away from the harsh world outside. And when she finally drew back, her voice lingering like a gentle wind, she said, "You must go back, Jose. The world of the living needs you. But remember this place, and me, whenever you feel lost. We are never truly apart." Jose nodded, understanding the bittersweet truth. Maria's presence here was eternal, yet he had responsibilities, a life that demanded him beyond the veil of memory. He stepped outside, clutching the locket and envelope close to his chest, feeling her love imbued in every fiber of the objects she left behind. As he walked back through the forest, the fog lifting gradually, he felt a peace he hadn't known in over a year. He wasn't alone. He had carried Maria's love and memory forward, a guiding light for his future and for his children. And though the house receded behind the trees, fading into mist, its presence remained indelible in his heart. Every step home felt lighter, filled with purpose, and as he emerged into the sunlight beyond the forest, Jose knew one undeniable truth: love does not end. It transforms, it guides, it endures. The journey had begun with loss and uncertainty, but it ended with clarity, hope, and an unbreakable connection that death itself could not sever. Jose looked at the horizon, the city beyond the trees waiting for him, and whispered softly, "Thank you, Maria, for everything." The locket warmed in his hand one last time, a heartbeat of memory, and then, with the whisper of the wind through the trees, he walked home.